Our next award this evening is the Passionistas Persist Trailblazer Award. The definition of trailblazer is a pioneer, an innovator, a person who makes a new track through wild country. Tonight's recipient is an activist and author who is pushing boundaries for women daily in this wild country we live in. The award is being presented by Dr. Melissa Bird, a feminist, author, healer, and coach. Melissa's purpose in this world is to teach women how to step into their truth and quit playing small.
I am so pleased to be presenting the 2022 Passionistas Persist Trailblazer Award to my amazing, inspiring friend, Soraya Chemaly. Soraya is an award-winning author and activist, is the former executive director of the Representation Project and director and co-founder of the Women's Media Center Speech Project. And she has long been committed to expanding women's civic and political participation. One of the things I love and adore about Soraya is that she is the author of one of my most favorite books, Rage Becomes Her, The Power of Women's Anger. And I do not think it is any coincidence that this year of all years, I get the privilege and the honor of presenting Soraya with this incredible Trailblazer Award. So Soraya, thank you so much for joining me today to receive this amazing, beautiful, awesome, well-deserved award, because you are certainly blazing many trails in my life and the lives of so many of us.
Thank you so much, Missy, and thank you to the Passionista Project. I am really genuinely so honored. It has been a difficult year. It's been a difficult decade, actually. And honestly, it's just nice to know that organizations like yours are thinking about the work that people are doing that requires this kind of persistence, which doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as hope. But really and truly, I'm genuinely very, very honored and delighted to be able to have this chance to have a conversation with you again, and want to just say thank you very much.
You and I, in our professional work, Soraya, we work with so many organizations and so many people who are trying.
Yes.
But the thing that I love about the Passionistas Project is they are doing in such an authentically beautiful way. And so the first thing I really want to talk with you about today is about the power of the Passionistas and this mission of bringing all these women together from literally all over the world.
Yes.
To talk about making change with diversity, equity, and inclusion, truly doing it this time.
Yes.
Like the lineup just blows my mind every time I think about it. So what does the power of Passionistas mean to you?
When I first heard Passionista, my response was a little bit viscerally to think, oh, hold on, that's a word that I personally have heard, that you have heard, that many of us have heard, that's used dismissively. You're so passionate about that project you work on, right? As though some of the issues that we are fighting against are pet projects that we do in our spare time because it makes us feel happy, you know? And so I actually had that initial response, but what I really came to understand and think about was the fact that there's no reason to reject the word passionate or the idea of what it implies and clearly means in this context. I mean, these are women from all over the world who are dedicating their lives to making change, often in situations of grave danger, of risk, of political violence. Increasingly, we know this is the case. Increasingly, we know that the people at the forefront of so many movements, environmental movements, climate change, indigenous rights, abortion, reproductive rights, racial justice, it's over and over and over again. Women, Black women, queer women, trans women, women who are just pushed farther and farther and farther into the margins. And so I think it's really important to understand what it means. Honestly, the word kind of, to me, lies at the nexus of the personal and political that some people have the luxury to think are separate, right? We know that that's a decades old expression from the feminist world, that the personal is political. But a lot of people really still benefit from separating those two things. And we gain nothing by pretending that they're separated.
I think we have to have passion to keep moving on. If we remain passionate about the things that deeply impact our lives and our world and the world of other people, particularly all of the women you just mentioned, we start talking about disabled women, women who are engaging in decolonizing work. We start talking about rebellious women, women who are trying to get educated and disrupting the education system. When we think about those people being the ones who are potentially going to get us through, then we have to understand passion. Because without passion, the drive in hopeless moments becomes diminished. And so, what are you the most passionate about?
When the Dobbs decision came down, I think like a lot of people, I burst out crying. And the thing is that you've been doing this work. I've been doing this work for, it feels like decades, right? There was no surprise in this at all. There was just profound loss and disappointment and sadness and rage. That's how I felt, and it was just so eviscerating, actually, because I think that if you have been on this side of this fight, seriously, you understand what just happened, what we just lost, what it represents. And that's not to diminish other losses at all, but it's such a turning point to have the right taken away. But it is a really critical point and a great unraveling.
What are the things that you really want to help people who are part of this Passionistas Summit understand about taking our rage and using it to blaze wherever we're going?
There are a few things that really still strike me. It's been 3 years since the book was published. And, it's one of these books, I think, that has a very long tail, because in fact, there is an evergreen quality to these ideas, and we want to understand emotionality. And we, in particular, I think, want to understand the role it plays in our cognition, because if you are a woman or femme identifying, you know how quickly and easily people dismiss you if you express anger, which is why so many of us try not to show anger, feel anger, display anger. We've grown up being punished for it or mocked for it. That's the number one worry women have. It's not that someone's going to be violent. It is that they will be mocked for expressing anger, which is an expression of need or an assertion of will, right? And we're not supposed to have either of those things. But I think that there are a few things. One is to be a trailblazer and to use your passionate feelings and beliefs doesn't require that you take on the whole world all at once or have an institution or a structure. The whole fact of trailblazing is that you find a new way. You find a way that makes sense to you. And then most times it also makes sense to other people, but they just either didn't do it or didn't think of it or didn't have the time, but are so appreciative of the fact that you might do it. And so for some people, that might be organizing a local choir to resist peacefully in a certain way, right? To other people, it may be writing legislation. To other people, it may be mobilizing transportation. Who knows what it is, right? But I think it's really important to not feel paralyzed by the idea that there's a way to trailblaze. The point is, it's risky. Yes. You have to take the risk. People may call you stupid or, any number of terrible, terrible names, which 100% will happen. So you really have to really fundamentally be okay with people not liking you. That's the other lesson that really strikes me about being passionate and being angry, as part of that, we are so expected and socialized to be likable and to put others first and not make other people uncomfortable. Trailblazing always makes people uncomfortable. We need more people to be very profoundly uncomfortable.
When we come together and hold each other in all of this and we connect wherever we're at, then we can start to figure out ways to move through this.
Yeah, and I think too, in terms of coming to terms with what all of that really means, I think that what's very clear is that communities that have been under-resourced and punished for centuries, right? They have been responsible for themselves. They have already been at war with the government. They have already been punished repeatedly by the society.
Yes.
This is not new.
No.
Honestly, what's new right now, I think, is the shock to white communities, just like when Trump was elected, frankly.
Yeah.
Right. Just the shock of it to some people that, my God, it can actually happen. And you're like, yeah, it can.
Yeah, sure enough.
It can, because it has. It's happened over and over and over again. And so that circle of people who are negatively affected is now bigger. And I think part of the problem is the instinct in many communities is, well, we need to do something. And then they start from new instead of stepping back and thinking, this would be a really good time to educate myself, to listen, to learn, to support the leaders who've already been doing this, the communities that understand how to do this, and I know this too. I will say this flat out because I have seen this over and over again. What often happens, particularly you've seen this too, right? In feminist organizations, but philanthropic organizations that aren't specifically feminist, white women will replicate patriarchal power structures by default, and they will act in ways that are corrosive to other types of organizations and societies. So very hierarchical, very dominant, very power over, very top down. We've seen that destroy organizations over and over again. So I think it's just really important in this moment to step back and be very self-reflective. How am I contributing to this problem structurally without knowing it? What mistakes have I made? What can I learn? How can I be quiet? How can I learn? How can I learn is really, I think, possibly the most important thing the question people can ask right now. We all can learn.